Well, I didn't think I would talk about basketball again today. I thought we'd talk about basketball on yesterday's Morning Pitt. I thought we'd talk about it on tomorrow's Morning Pitt. It was to recap the Pitt SMU game tonight. But I thought we'd take a break from basketball today and switch over to football and talk about some different topics and break down some different things. But then I started thinking about different stuff, and you can see that second headline right up there. Damian Dunn likely out for the rest of the season. Jeff Capel said that. I mean, he said it on Saturday after the game at Carolina when Dunn suffered a fractured elbow. He said that they get him looked at by the doctors, but it seemed like they probably wouldn't have him for the rest of the season. Yesterday on the ACC coaches teleconference, we asked him again, you have any update? He said no, because they flew directly from Chapel Hill to Dallas for the SMU game. And they wanted to have doctors in Pittsburgh look at it, so Dunn is with the team. He hasn't gotten a chance to go back and be evaluated, but still the expectation is he's likely out for the rest of the season. So I started thinking about that. I started thinking about what it meant and, how they're going to move forward without Dunn. Obviously, as Capel pointed out, it's something they have a little bit of experience with, unfortunately. They've played 7 games already this season without Damian Dunn after he suffered that injury in the Wisconsin game. Well, they do. They went 6-1 in that stretch, so decent performance there. But more interesting than how is the team going to do without Damian Dunn is who are they going to use without Damian Dunn. Dunn had moved back into the starting lineup and actually played a pretty decent game at North Carolina. Obviously, he had a season high 24 points in the loss at Wake Forest. I thought he played pretty well. Our guy Steve Gertz broke it down yesterday in the film on Panther-Lair.com. From the Carolina game, looking at how Dunn played and how well he sort of facilitated and helped the offense kind of move, and that he did a decent job, and it's kind of unfortunate that he's going out now. There are questions, and I don't know if the coaches, well, actually, Jeff Capel might answer it, honestly. I think they're good questions, and a lot of fans have been bringing it up about how Dunn's absence for those 7 games and then his return into the lineup and reinsertion into the lineup after he returned from those 7 games, how that affected the chemistry of the team, on the court. Not necessarily off the court, but on the court, and how they worked and how they flowed. You're off to this start without him. You take him out for an injury. You play 7 games without him. You seem to find a groove and find a way to make your living. And then you put him back in, and, well, that first game back was the Duke game, and they've only won 2 games since then. So after Dunn returned, 2 wins. Not exactly... not entirely reflective of his presence or the impact he had or the positive or negative. But I'm curious what Capel would say about the chemistry question. And, the ACC coaches teleconference, I don't think is necessarily the right environment or setting to ask him those questions. But we will ask him at some point how he thought Dunn's absence and then return affected the chemistry. Ultimately, that's sort of a side story. It's something we can consider and talk about, and it'd be interesting to find out what the coaches think, but more pressing is what they do right now, because now Dunn is out of the lineup. Capel said most likely out for the season. So, I mean, there's a slim chance, a percentage chance he could return or something like that, but it seems highly, highly unlikely. It seems all but done. It's to try not to use that word again. And so I think you move forward assuming that Damian Dunn's not going to be playing again, and he's certainly not going to be playing tonight at SMU. So what happens? Who plays? How does the lineup look? What changes? Obviously, you move back to your starting lineup with Jalen Lowe, Ishmael Leggett, Zach Austin, Guillermo Diaz-Graham, and Cam Corrin. That seems like the starting point. That you go back to that starting lineup, which they used a lot throughout this season. But then, what about beyond that? Because you could play those guys a ton of minutes and still get minimal minutes for the bench, but maybe this is the opportunity to force your hand a little bit and dig into your bench a little bit more. Brandon Cummings, Jorge Diaz-Graham, dare I say it, Amsal Dalic. Get these guys on the court. Let them play. All right. We got a lot to talk about how they're going to replace Damian Dunn, plus some other thoughts on this matchup with SMU and what to watch for tonight when the Panthers take on the Mustangs in Dallas. It didn't go so well when the football team was down there in the fall. Can it go better tonight when the basketball team takes a trip down to Dallas? All right, let's talk about Pitt SMU. Let's talk about Damian Dunn's absence, the lineup, the rotations, and all those things here on the Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, Tuesday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Talking a little more Pitt basketball today. Looks like we're going to start off the week with 3 days of basketball talk. Yesterday, recapping the North Carolina game. Today, getting you ready for SMU and talking about Damian Dunn's absence. And then tomorrow, recapping the SMU game, which means we are going to record tomorrow's Morning Pitt very late tonight. You got a 9 p.m. tip-off for Pitt SMU. This game is on, where is it on? The ACC network? Yeah. 9 p.m. tip-off on the ACC network. It's going to be a late night for us all, but of course you can follow along with the game and all the action as it happens. As you watch the game, you can follow on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, where the game threads are very lively. We'll say that. They are, if nothing else, they are very lively. It's just one long string of hundreds of freezing cold takes, sometimes. But when you react to every possession, you react to every play as if it's indicative of the entire game, that's going to be the case every now and then. Half your posts are going to end up being wrong, but I digress. It's a lot of fun, though. It's a good place to talk with other Pitt fans during the game, interact with other Pitt fans. You're sitting at your house watching the game. They're sitting at their houses watching the game. Everybody's on the Panther-Lair.com message boards together watching the games and talking about it. So check it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you never miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content. These daily Morning Pitt videos, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30. We'll be live tomorrow night, me and Jim Hammett and you, talking about Pitt sports. For an hour here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We have post-game interviews. We do post-game shows sometimes, press conferences, all kinds of things right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like and subscribe. All right, Damian Dunn gone. Not going to play tonight. Probably not going to play the rest of the season. What does that do for the lineup and the rotation? What is it going to look like? What should you expect to see? And there's two schools of thought. One based on hope and one based on what might be considered precedent. On the hope side, the Pitt coaches go back to their starting lineup that they prefer: Lowe, Leggett, Austin, Guillermo, and Corin. And then this is where the hope part comes in. You get a healthy rotation. You get guys like Brandon Cummings and Jorge Diaz-Graham, quality minutes. You get Cam Corin or Papa Amadou Kanti, quality minutes. I'm not even going to say you get Amsal Delilich quality minutes because it appears that ship has sailed. And I'd love to know why. I mean, I have my suspicions of why, and I think it's related to a lot of the same reasons we don't see more of Brandon Cummings. We don't see more of Jorge Diaz-Graham, and it's probably, defensive concerns, that those guys aren't good enough defensively. Well, guess what? The team isn't good enough defensively. And so you might as well load up and score as much as you can, and those guys can all provide scoring. You know what Brandon Cummings did when in the 7 games when Damian Dunn was out? Cummings averaged 19 minutes per game, 10.9 points per game, shot 58%, I want to say, from the floor and like 62% from 3. And not on a small sample size. He made 12 out of 22 threes in that stretch of 7 games. And yeah, he played Eastern Kentucky. That was when he had the 30-point game. He played Sam Houston, but he also played Ohio State, Mississippi State, Virginia Tech, Cal, and Stanford. 5 out of those 7 games are against high major competition, and 3 out of those 5 are against ACC teams. And Brandon Cummings was good enough to play 19 minutes per game in that stretch and average almost 11 points per game. And it wasn't just the 30-point game. He also had, what did I see? Oh, I thought I had it. I got my box scores here. Cummings had... not the Stanford game. He had 4 points against Stanford. Oh, he had 15 against Cal. And thought he had another good one. Oh, Mississippi State, he scored 12. So he had double-digit scoring in some of those games, in addition to playing a lot of minutes, in addition to shooting really well. And, I mean, would you take 12 of 22 from 3 in a 7-game stretch? I would. Get the offense. We know what he can do. He can shoot. He's one of the better shooters on the team. So is Jorge Diaz-Graham. And guess what? Your starting lineup is not shooting all that great. Cam Corin doesn't offer you anything from 3. Zach Austin's been really good from 3 for the most part, but he wasn't in the 2 games prior to Saturday. He was really bad, as a matter of fact. Guillermo can shoot, just doesn't shoot all that much. And Lowe and Leggett just aren't efficient enough to make it worthwhile. You got to keep teams honest so they fire away. But, Lowe is below 30%, and he has been all season. Like, that expected, regression to the mean, positive regression to the mean, that hasn't happened. He's moved further away from the mean, and now the mean is getting meaner. Sorry. So get your guys out there who can shoot. Get Cummings out there. Get Jorge out there. I'm trying not to say it, but, get Amsal out there and drive and kick. Please, can we just try it? Can you just try it for one time this season? Can you try to drive and kick to Amsal Delilich? What would it hurt you? What's it going to cost you to try it? Just once. I feel like you've got a better than 40% chance of that ball going in. Just once? Can we just try it? Is it that crazy of an idea? So that's the hopeful scenario. I forgot where we started on all this. There's two scenarios, right, of how this could play out without Damian Dunn. That's the hopeful scenario. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that's probably what you're hoping for. I think that's what a lot of Pitt fans would like to see, is that starting lineup, fine, but with a healthy rotation of 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, 8 being Cummings, really 9, but Cummings, Papa Conti, Jorge Diaz-Graham, and maybe Amsal Delilich, right? That would be the hopeful scenario that I think everyone would like to see, to find out how it goes. Maybe it works. You're playing the top scoring team in the ACC tonight. You think you're going to slow them down defensively with the way you play? I don't think so. So you might as well go out with guns blazing and try to match them. Try to beat them in a track meet. And not necessarily in terms of tempo, but in terms of scoring. So that's the hopeful scenario. The other scenario that might be a little more likely based on precedent and what we know about this staff and what we've come to believe about this staff is that they go with that starting 5, Lowe, Leggett, Austin, Guillermo, and Corin, and they ride those guys for 30-plus minutes. And you get a handful of minutes for Jorge, couple minutes for Papa Amadou Conti, maybe 4 minutes for Brandon Cummings, and you mostly live or die with those 5 as they run their legs into the ground. And that's essentially what they did in the Virginia Tech game. Now, they won the Virginia Tech game, but that's essentially what they did in the Virginia Tech game. Jalen Lowe in the Virginia Tech game played more than 39 minutes. Ishmael Leggett played almost 39 minutes. Cam Corin played 35 and a half minutes. Zach Austin played 33 minutes, and Guillermo Diaz-Graham played 31 and a half minutes. Now, the other minutes were spread out. Brandon Cummings played 9.5. Amsal Delilich played 6. Jorge Diaz-Graham was about 4. Papa Amadou Conti was about 2. A little more than 2. You would take those 4 guys, pare it down to Jorge getting the bulk of the minutes, Cummings getting a few, and Conti getting a few, given the way this staff has coached in the last 10 games or so. I think that's probably what you would expect to see. That's probably what I expect to see. I think the tightening up of the rotation, I think the tightening up of other things, and I think the tightening up of just being scared to go away from those top 5 or 6 guys has led them to their current personnel situation, where they don't feel comfortable putting in anyone else because for the longest time they just haven't put in anyone else. Well, now you've lost Damian Dunn, you've lost one of your veteran guards, and you're going to need to play somebody else on the wing. Somebody else is going to have to play. And it's going to be Cummings or it's going to be Jorge. So you might as well use this opportunity to expand your rotation a little bit. Move guys out. Get more guys on the court. Let Brandon Cummings play. This is going to be one of your main guys next year. And I'm firmly with coaches who always say well, we can't, make decisions right now when we're in the heat of a season with something to play for, and they do still technically have something to play for. But coaches will say we can't right now in the middle of a season when we still have something to play for, go out and start making personnel decisions and lineup changes based on what's going to help us for next year. Fair enough. I get that. You're not going to throw in the towel. You can't expect your players to give the best effort if you throw in the towel and say, screw it, guys, look, we need to plan for next year. So, you're going to take fewer minutes because you're not going to be here next year. We need to find out what Brandon Cummings can do. I'm not saying do that. And I get it why a coach wouldn't do that. But maybe there's this happy medium where Brandon Cummings can help you now, and that helps get ready for next year. That gets him more experience for next year, and you can expect more out of him next year. You're going to need him on the court all the time next year. He's going to play for you all the time next year. So you might as well get him out there now. The opening is there. The opportunity is there. You don't need to fill Damian Dunn's minutes by leaving Austin, Guillermo, and Corin and all these guys on the court more. Like, you fill Damian Dunn's minutes by giving a little bit more to those guys and then getting more minutes for those guys off the bench. I think that's what you should do. And I think Brandon Cummings in particular is one. I can't sit here and yell about Amsal Delilich anymore. I should, but I don't want to. Actually, no, I shouldn't. There's no reason to. I've beat that drum to death. He should have been so awesome this year. But Brandon Cummings should be the guy who gets out there and plays a lot in Damian Dunn's absence. In addition to Jorge, in addition to Papa Amadou Conti, in addition to Amsal Delilich. And I know Conti doesn't play a position that's necessarily impacted by Damian Dunn's absence, except to consider, if Guillermo has to play the 4 more, because Austin has to play the 3 more, then you would need somebody to spell Cam Corin a little bit more, and that should be Papa Amadou Conti. As far as this matchup tonight, SMU is a really balanced offensive approach. They are the top scoring offense in the ACC. They're the top 3-point shooting offense in the ACC in terms of 3-point field goal percentage. They haven't made the most threes in the league, but they shoot them better than anybody else in the conference. They've got 5 players who average double-digit scoring and a 6th guy who's averaging 9.9 points per game. So it's effectively 6. Andy Enfield said yesterday we've got 6 guys averaging double digits. Not quite, Coach. Quite. You got 1 guy averaging 9.9. That doesn't count. But it's still a good stat. Boobie Miller, you remember him from last year. You remember him from Wake Forest. Pitt played 3 games against Miller at Wake Forest last year. The game at Pitt, which Pitt won. Miller had 11 points, 1 assist, and 1 turnover. The game in Wake Forest, when Wake Forest killed Pitt, Miller had 18 points, 2 assists, and no turnovers. And then the ACC tournament, when Pitt won the rubber match, Boopie Miller had 6 points, 2 assists, and 3 turnovers. This year, he is Wake Forest's leading scorer, 13.4 points per game. He's one of the tops in the ACC at 5.8 assists per game, just a little bit more than Jalen Lowe. And he's averaging 2.2 turnovers per game, which is quite a bit less than Jalen Lowe. He's actually in the top 5, I think, in the conference in assist-to-turnover ratio. Boopie Miller is their main guy, but he's not the only guy for sure. Matt Cross is a dangerous 6'7" guy. Leading rebounder. They've got a 7'2" freshman who's going to be an interesting challenge for Cam Corin just with the size that he's giving up. But I haven't gotten a chance to watch SMU a lot, so I don't know how well the guy moves. But a 7'2" freshman with an unpronounceable last name, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to say the 7'2" freshman is going to be a challenge for Corin. It's going to be a challenge to cover Matt Cross on the perimeter and with all the things that he does as SMU's leading rebounder. Zach Austin probably gets that assignment, although that's kind of it for their size of their main guys that SMU rolls out there. So Guillermo Diaz-Graham, who knows, maybe Guillermo takes on the 7'2" guy. There's a little bit more of a length and height matchup there, but does Cam Corin guard Matt Cross then? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the defensive assignments are and how they go about it. Wake Forest, SMU definitely has its guards and is guard-driven, guard-led with Miller at the top, but it's an interesting matchup. And like I say, a very balanced scoring attack from SMU and one that I think is going to challenge Pitt. And so I don't know if I really like, and I mean, this is guaranteeing that Pitt will slow their offense down, but I don't know if I really like Pitt's chances of slowing their offense down as a very good 3-point shooting team, and again, the high-scoring team in the ACC. So if it's me, and this virtually guarantees that Pitt will win this game like 64-62, but if it's me, I'm trying to outscore Wake Forest, which means I need all my firepower on the court, which means I need Brandon Cummings. I need Jorge Diaz-Graham. I need Amsal Delilich. I need these guys out there playing a lot and scoring. Bombs away. I don't know if you need to necessarily remake your team in the final, 8 games of the season or whatever it is. I don't know if you need to do that in the final quarter, but you might as well see what you can do, see what you can get, see what kind of scoring you can produce. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think every one of these games will be interesting. I mean, certainly more or less based on the previous game's outcome. But right now, Pitt still hanging on to a thread of a hope for an NCAA tournament spot. Puts a lot of pressure on this game. There's still something to play for. And this team with another chance to respond to another disappointing outcome. I'm curious to see what they do tonight. And like I said, I'm curious to see what the rotations look like, the lineups look like. I was curious to see if they would change the starting lineup for the Carolina game after how bad that Virginia game was and nothing happened there. So my guess is all this intrigue about, the lineup and the rotations will turn out to be for naught, and there won't be anything all that interesting about it. Maybe a few extra minutes for Jorge, a few extra minutes for Brandon Cummings, and nothing all that remarkable. I would like to see something remarkable. I don't know if we're going to get it tonight, but we'll see if Pitt can get a win. Either way, we'll be talking about it tomorrow on the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you won't miss any of our Pitt video content. And then check out the message boards, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The best place to talk about Pitt sports as the game happens tonight. 9 o'clock tip-off, Pitt at SMU. We'll be talking about it on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. So thanks for tuning in today. I hope your week's off to a great start. Enjoy your Tuesday. Enjoy the game tonight. We will catch up with you tomorrow for a game recap right here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.